First pick.
Alrighty, welcome to On the Clock. On the Clock is presented by our friends at Titan Bat Company. If you're looking for the highest quality handcrafted wood bats in the game, Titan Bats has you covered with premium maple, ash, and birch game bats in 10 different models and colors to fit your swinging style. As you're gearing up for the spring season, Titan Bats is the perfect option for your next wood bat. In addition to game bats ranging from youth baseball to softball to men's baseball, Titan Bats also offers award bats that make the perfect gift to celebrate a teammate, coach, or baseball fan in your life. Check them out at titanbats.com and use the code JB15 to get 15% off your first order. All right, it's live stream edition again here for On the Clock. That's Jason, our good friend with 64 Analytics. Will's going to be joining us here in a few. We got a lot to recap on the Super Regionals. A lot of
boring weekend.
Yeah,
boring
terrible.
Weekend, right?
Awful weekend of baseball. Who would want to even tune in?
All right, end of show. That was fun.
Yeah, and that was fun. We enjoyed it.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Yeah.
This is great. I guess I don't even know where to start. I did I did an article for Just Baseball, kind of going over the top 5 most exciting ones. I feel like maybe because it's just recency bias, but Duke Murray State, I felt like it was such a good series. Maybe not the best one, but it was just kind of fun to watch 2 scrappy teams go at it. And really just Murray State shocking the world as a 4 seed in a regional coming out of the Super Regionals and punching their ticket to Omaha.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've already written Murray State's obituary 10 times. In the regional prior to the start of it. Then when Ole Miss got them to game 5,
yeah,
and then after Duke, beat them pretty handily in game 1, and then in game 3 when it was 3-3 and Easterly came in, each time I kept kind of going, okay, and now they're done, and it just never really seemed to come to fruition. Really just kind of hats off to them. I think it's great to see in college baseball that in an era where, a lot of players kind of go to the bigger and better things. Sometimes, the better option isn't the school that's in the SEC or the ACC. There are still very good options for players to go to, get seen, get some innings pitched, get some ABs, and really be able to show out for that school. So, and it's really fun to see the coach in the post-game conferences, seems like a really down-to-earth individual.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it's kind of just all the way around. You're excited for them. It's wild for Duke because they were just on such a roll. Definitely one of the 2s that I loved coming into this tournament. And then when they won the game 1, I thought they were a shoe-in for Omaha at that point. So, I mean, I think it's, now we can say the Virginia coaching staff, but just really good guys. And, there are a lot of genuine people in baseball, but the now Virginia baseball coaching staff are very genuine individuals. So feel bad for them for not being able to pull it out, but you're excited for Murray State.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be one of those tough things, right? You just got bounced the night before, and then today it's announced Pollard's going over with the entire staff. So it's you had this big down, and now it's probably this kind of extreme high. But like you said, that coaching staff has been one of the best in college baseball, just from a personality standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, from just every standpoint you can kind of think of within the game. From Pollard down to Sack, down to everybody just going on, even their SID, Aaron, he's great too. The entire culture that they've built there, they took that program and turned it into something special. And I think it's going to be in good hands for who takes over because they laid a really, really good foundation.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I don't think anyone would have had a synonymous with Duke in baseball 5 years ago.
No.
So to see them hosting a super regional and, to see them just a few outs away from getting to Omaha, you have to tip your cap. And frankly, it makes sense that the decision went so quickly. If you just look at the top 100 players, it's littered with Virginia players.
Yeah.
I mean, Virginia has to make a move.
Mm-hmm.
They have to try to see if they can keep Ford or, anyone else that's in the portal. And I think it's going to be hard to, but at least they have to try.
Yeah.
So if if this was their move, it made 100% sense that it had to happen immediately afterwards. Because, and you also want to make sure that Duke is set up well.
Yeah,
Like, you don't want to be to where, Duke's already got like 3 portal commits. Like, basically want to give them time of like if they're going to have a spot in Virginia or not, because sometimes there's just a little bit of differences in recruiting strategies. Duke, sometimes it's a little bit harder to get those freshmen, sophomore, or juniors because a lot of those hours don't transfer. And I'm not saying like Virginia isn't this bastion of like academic success,
yeah,
but I do think sometimes it's a little bit harder just from a resume, from I don't know what the word I'm thinking of, but just the hours that they have to bring over. It's a little bit harder for Duke.
yeah, and it's like
Transcript.
yeah,
That's what I was looking
we've
for.
kind of talked about how they've gone after the Ivy Leagues in the past, right? Gotten the top players out of that during the transfer portal. Probably look at schools like Georgetown, like Jake Hyde was a Georgetown guy, who also,
Grad transfer. They're
yeah,
able to get grad transfers. They
yep,
just can't. They weren't able to get anyone that basically didn't have that full allotment for hours.
yeah,
So if you were going in with 80 hours, it's not like they could transfer it easily and get you in.
yeah. Yeah, no, and it's going to be interesting to see who kind of takes that role, but we'll get into the coaching talk a little bit later. The second series I wanted to talk about, and I think this is probably, I said the Duke Murray State was the most exciting, but I feel like Oregon State Florida State was the most exciting series of the weekend. You
The
had
best
two,
one. I think it was the best from beginning to end.
yes,
I think there
yeah,
were a number of games in the other 7 that were either blowouts or some of them weren't close, or maybe it just wasn't as dramatic. It felt like all 3 games were drama packed.
yeah. And he like talk about blowouts. It seemed like Oregon State was going to blow them out in game 3, and
Oh
then
yeah.
Florida State just started clawing their way back. Like,
Oh, yeah,
it,
even in the ninth when it was
yeah,
10-14, that final strike was not a strike, and they would have had, I think, bases loaded or at least 2 guys on. So I mean, they were one walk away from having either a run in or the winning run at the plate. I can't remember if they had 2 on or 1 on, but
yeah,
they were they had some danger there in the ninth inning as well. So, and once you get to that point, so many arms used. Like if you get past like what you theoretically are calling like your closer and you're in pitcher like 8 or 9, that's a really big position. And things can go downhill pretty quickly.
yeah. I mean, and it was like you mentioned fireworks, like from game like the in the 10th inning with like AJ Singer playing here, right? Driving in Gavin Turley with a first pitch single. That crowd just went absolutely. And like I've been to Corvallis, it's just an awesome atmosphere. And like we talked about how I picked Florida State to kind of to go into Corvallis and win. And it's like it's impossible to go into Corvallis
Yeah.
and win a baseball game. But I think they were like 24, 25-2 or something stupid at home. It's an incredible environment. That community cares about that baseball team. That program's been elite for years and hasn't really kind of missed a beat. And it's from coach to coach too. Like they had their legendary Hall of Fame coach basically retire, and Mitch Canham's come in and taken over, and they're still an elite program. And so it was cool to watch the entire series. Like Oregon State gets that dramatic first game win. Like Jamie Arnold goes out and just shoves. It didn't even have his best stuff that night. At least like when I was watching him on the mound compared to former outings, didn't have his best stuff. Still found a way to dominate on the mound. And I think that like kind of tells you how good a pitcher really is. If they can go on the mound without their like ace stuff and still throw like a 7 inning, 1 earned, 6K type outing, like that was just incredible.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, unfortunately for Florida State, you kind of just have to be asking yourself once again, like, what if in a
Yeah.
postseason? I mean, you go into the bottom of the ninth of game 1, and was it like 1-4, 2-4? I can't remember the exact score, but they were at multiple runs.
Hmm.
And then they just kind of like have some walks and some blue singles, and then just a really big RBI double. I feel like I can't remember who it was. I think it was the catcher. I want to say it was like an RBI,
Wilson
two
Weber.
RBI. Yeah, I can't. I honestly can't remember.
Yeah.
But it's one of the things where in baseball we're superstitious all
Hmm.
the time. And there was this graphic that came up that basically said like, Florida State's bullpen in the regular season and like a 5+ ERA, like not terribly good. and then it showed their ERA in the tournament, and they hadn't given up a run. It was almost like as soon as you saw that graphic, it was as if you were already writing, the post game of, oh, that was unfortunate for Florida State that they were unable to hold on to the lead. So I think, again, unfortunately for Florida State, they had a really good opportunity to kind of push through once again. And the last one last year, that wasn't really their fault. I mean, they beat Tennessee. Like
Yeah.
that's just a bad call, which is unfortunate. But just is what it is. 2 years in a row, kind of just disappointment at the tail end of the season.
Yeah. And I mean, it's got to be so frustrating that game one, too, because like you win that game and you got Jamie Arnold going game two. And you had that game like basically locked in, loaded. It was your game to win. And that's just what's crazy. It's like that's baseball. Like one or two plays just kind of calls the entire series in some sense.
Absolutely. I mean, Oregon State feels like they've just been playing with fire this
Yeah.
entire tournament. I mean, well, they lost game one to the 4th seed St. Mary's, and then they just blew out everybody the rest of which was incredibly impressive because generally once you get to game 5
Yeah.
in 4 days, your pitching is pretty much done. But they still, I mean, they dominated that last game against Southern Cal. So I think it showed that they have good pitching depth. But, after that, then Florida State comes in and they pretty much handled them the first game.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't really like Florida State kind of had that game the entirety until the very end when they just kind of let it slip through their fingers. And then Florida State kind of had it, the entirety in game 2. So it was really just like Oregon State had like 5 good innings in
Yeah.
3 days, and those 5 good innings won them the series.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Before we go to the next series, I also forgot I wanted to mention on the Murray State front, Jonathan Hogarth. That
Okay.
guy just went absolutely absurd in
It's
that
their
series.
closer, right? The last 2 games.
No, the
Oh,
guy with the bat that's hit the home
hit
like
back to
every home run in every
yeah, the
game.
2 home runs. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yesterday. Yeah, yeah. I would love to say that my baseball knowledge goes into the names of the Murray State racers, but unfortunately, it just doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm going to get to know their names much better now that they're in Omaha. But the 2 guys that impressed me, frankly, the one that impressed me the most was their closer.
Like 40
Um,
pitches every time.
well, it wasn't just that. Like there's 2 things in college baseball that I think if you can do well, like you succeed. One is just throw strikes,
Mhm.
like just throw strikes, and the other is command the inside of the plate.
Yeah.
If you watch like 90% of college baseball, it's fastball away, slider away, fastball away, slider away. Some teams they love the high pitch. Tennessee, they love high fastballs. They want to get you to chase at
Yeah.
those chest high fastballs, swing underneath it, hit pop ups, all those kinds of fun things. That they get a lot of strikeouts at Doyle. That was like his pitch.
Mhm.
But you don't see a ton of teams that just paint that inside of the plate because there's generally of the 3 outcomes, 2 of them are bad. One is you hit the guy, and the
Yeah.
other is you throw kind of that middle end sweet zone and they crush it. So it's kind of a difficulty, and he was nailing it on both
Yeah.
sides, versus lefties and righties. So his command of the fastball was really impressive. There was an at bat versus Ben Miller where he painted a fastball on the outside edge and then he threw a curveball basically in the dirt, but it looked like it was something that Miller was sitting on. He swung for the downs and completely missed it. And then he threw a slider, kind of tunneled with his curve to where from the previous pitch, Miller just had in his head like this is going to
Mhm.
be in the dirt,
Yeah.
but it actually ended up not having as much depth. And you could see he tried to like panic swing at the last second and just threw out. So I mean, it was like a master class, and you don't have to have just unworldly stuff. I mean, he had good stuff. He was hitting like 94,
Yeah.
but you don't have to have 99. If you're able to hit that inside zone, if you're able to kind of tunnel to off speeds, you can really make very good hitters not look good. And so I think that's like sometimes why you have pitchers like from Murray State that maybe don't have those TrackMan like, oh my gosh, this guy really wows me kind of stuff. But when you watch him live, you're like, this guy's hard to hit.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to like when we talk about like the the 88 to 91 lefty that shoves because he commands the ball so well, right? Like all these guys are gearing up for 95 plus and guys missing their spots, right? Because
Yeah,
that's
for
basically
sure.
what you're. I mean, even if you watch Liam Doyle, he's just basically throwing the fastball up in the zone. And if you lay off the fastball up in the zone, you might get a mistake pitch. But like if you're commanding the fastball as good as these guys had been doing for Murray State, and like you think about another guy like Harrison Bodendorf, like that's another guy who just commands his pitches really well. That's when you're going to have success.
Yeah. No, agreed. I mean, I put something together last year, which it basically talked about like a walk differential,
Hmm.
and there's a direct linear correlation between like a positive walk differential and winning the games. It's just don't put guys on for free. Make
Yeah.
them get hits.
Yeah, exactly. Next series that we're going to go into here. Let's see. Should we talk about your Razorbacks? Um,
Sure, sure.
this is a marquee SEC matchup. I feel like Arkansas kind of just went and dominated this. It's one hard to win at their place, so that was like a disadvantage to Tennessee. But everybody was kind of talking about how Tennessee was really going to kind of give them some fits here, and I just felt like Arkansas really, really showcased how good they are.
Yeah, I mean, I picked Tennessee to win this one.
Yeah.
A little bit, just as a fan, it's hard to pick for your team, kind of thing. I don't want to seem like a homer, but I
Yeah.
also am trying to just objectively, like, um, Phil Arkansas has struggled versus right-handed pitchers recently. Maddox in
Mhm.
the SEC tournament shoved against him. I mean, they couldn't touch him for Ole Miss, and then they struggled a little bit against. The North Dakota State righty at the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, they were down in that game at the beginning. I don't know if any people remember that. And so, I mean, they went crazy on Creighton game two, but because they were going Marcus Phillips, and Phillips had a pretty good game.
Yeah, he pitched
I
well.
mean, Tennessee was up in that 2-1, I think, in the fourth. You know, you look at the hits and you go, "Oh, Arkansas killed Tennessee in that first game." I mean, they really didn't. Tennessee did a really good job. They got like a double play with the bases loaded. They got a double play with the guy on first and second. They had two double plays in like the first three innings, I think, to end the innings. And then they just had some timely hitting. Inslee, I think, hit a 2-run home run. Fisher, I think, hit a 1-run home run. So it ended
Mhm.
up being 4-3. But those were all those tennis. Those that they didn't have another hit that game. They had
Yeah.
two hits, two home runs. So it was kind of an odd game in that you're right. It felt like Arkansas like set the tone and dictated. And I was looking at Root's numbers. Very interesting is he doesn't really throw it that hard. He's usually like a 92 to 95 kind of a fastball sinker guy. He threw over 96, I think 18 times that game. He hit 99. He hit 99 versus Fisher. That one, that kind of controversial where he like throws his hand in the air kind of thing. He threw that for 99. He put 99.3. So he almost hit 100,
Yeah.
which for anyone who like follows Root, that's very abnormal. So I do think like you're right. There were definitely moments of Arkansas dominating this. It always felt like Tennessee was just a swing away, and they were quite legitimately a swing away in game one.
Yeah.
Game two, um,
That was a different
I
story.
think if you're Tony, you look back on that fourth inning and you kind of go like, you know, what if? So it was at that point. I think it was 3-1,
Yeah.
and the third run came across on I think a wild pitch. Can't fully remember. Davalon hit a 2-run home run. So you got in your three. You had yeah, it was bases loaded and they got a run home on a wild pitch, and it opened up first base. And Davalon had just hit the 2-run home run versus Doyle. Doyle was up to like 70 pitches.
Mhm.
I don't know if he was thinking about like maybe can he pitch tomorrow. I'm really not sure. He took him out. Um, I mean, I that was kind of surprising to me. And as soon as they intentionally walked Davalin, I was like, did they just really intentionally walk Davalin to get to like the SEC Player of the Year?
Yeah.
And then I go, he's going to take him out, and he took him out.
Yeah.
And frankly, it looked like a good move. The first two pitches, Aloy looked goofy. They were sliders in the dirt, and I mean, he was digging for gold.
Yeah.
He was literally kicking up dirt. And but then they just had a backup slider that hit Aloy. It loaded the bases. They changed pitchers again, brought on Russell, and Russell, I mean, it wasn't a bad pitch, and it also honestly wasn't really hit that hard. It
No.
just was hit in the perfect spot in the ballpark. It only went 330 for a grand slam.
Yeah.
So you went from this is a close game, this is a nail biter, to okay, they scratched around because this is all with 2 outs. It was like, okay, they scratched off a run on a wild pitch. Like, let's get out of this. I think it was a 1-2 count on Aloy, and it was like, okay, we're only going to get out of this with 1 run again. This is going to be great. And they didn't, and they had a grand slam. And the craziness behind that is the inning before that, like the half inning before that, Tennessee loaded the bases with nobody out, 3 straight
Hmm.
singles,
Yeah.
and they had Fisher up. They had the probably top hitter in the country. Nobody on, nobody out, bases loaded, 2-0 game. He hit a 4.63 double play. They went from 3 straight hits to out of the inning in 3 pitches. They had the 4.63 double play, and then on an 0-1 count, I think Inslee hit like a weak pop fly to center field. So it went from Tennessee's hoping for a crooked number, not a hoping, expecting a crooked
Yeah.
number and at least tying the game, to going into the, I think it was the top of the fourth. I think Tennessee was home. So going into the top of the fourth with basically still down 1 run. So I agree. Like, again, if you're box score surfing, I think you say Arkansas dominated that. I really feel like it's almost kind of similar to the Oregon State. It's like
Mm, yeah.
Arkansas won like 3 innings in that game handily, and everything else, it was a nail biter. It was, a bunch of zeros being put up. So it was 2 to 3 really big swings for Arkansas. The Helfrich home run, the Davelin home run, and the Maxwell home run. And that accounted for 8 of Arkansas's 14 runs, or I guess 15 runs. I can't remember how many they scored. So half of their runs came on 3 swings.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of crazy. Like, I completely forgot the first game was the Helfrich home run that went like 312 and
317. Yeah.
84 exit velo.
Which I don't know how that's technically possible. It's 320 down the line to left
Yeah.
field.
That's what I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, you love TrackMan, you love all the numbers, all the fun stuff. Sometimes you look at the numbers and you go, "This doesn't make any sense."
Yeah.
I remember, Kahio Aloy hit a home run maybe, like, March or April, and it said, like, 99 exit velo, 450 distance, and I went to the Arkansas data people, and I'm like, "Guys, this doesn't make any sense." Like the average distance, even if he hit it like the perfect
Yeah.
trajectory, which is like 31-degree launch angle, you're talking about maybe like 390, 400. Like, they're like, "Oh, it's just crazy wind." I'm like, was there a tornado? Like,
Yeah.
like, sometimes you just look at those numbers and you're gonna go, we'll just agree to disagree.
Yeah, I love the misreads too because I think when I was doing a report on like Daniel Dickinson before I went to LSU and at Utah Valley, it said he had like a max exit velo of like 135 miles an hour, and I'm like, that's not right. Can we just remove that from the system?
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
I mean, it's not perfect. It's incredibly accurate,
oh yeah, for
but it's
sure.
not perfect. And I definitely do not think that ball went 317. Otherwise, it would have been caught at the warning track.
I love it. Probably the couple more series to talk about. The big one for me is Arizona versus North Carolina.
Yeah,
It felt like North Carolina was a shoe in to be an Omaha team. Like they were number one, I think, going into this super regional. Jake Knapp, Jason DeCar, like the pitching staff was good. The
yeah,
lineup was good top to bottom. It just felt like this was a strong team that ran into a red hot Arizona Wildcats team. Like since the Big 12 tournament, Arizona has just felt like they've been scorching hot.
yeah. And I hate to bring up Arkansas again, but I will. North Carolina State, NC State, 2021. That was probably Arkansas's like top 5 team of all time. That was
Yeah.
the Kevin Kopps year, where he just probably had the best pitching season ever. You know, Skeens had a good one, but if you look at Cops's numbers, it's it's really hard to match.
Yeah.
And they hadn't lost a series all year. I think they'd lost like one game at home. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like they were playing Sisters of the Poor. Like I think they played six teams that were at some point ranked in the top five, and half of them were on the road, and they didn't lose any of those series. So dominating team. They went up against NC State. They won 21-2 the first game, 21-2. And everyone was like, okay, this makes sense. Dominant team going to Omaha. Everyone was already like thinking about their odds and blah, blah,
Same thing after
blah.
the North Carolina game.
Exactly. It was
Yeah.
18-2. Buddy of mine said North Carolina Sharpie. And I literally tweeted at him. I said, we are Arkansas fans. Like, you have to remember this is a 3-game series. And he goes, this team isn't North Carolina. This team isn't NC State from 2021 or Arkansas. I
Oops.
can't remember which one. I mean, yeah, I mean, like hindsight's 2020, but I
Yeah.
told him that, yeah, I agree with you because again, to your point, if someone handed me $100, I would have said that, North Carolina is going to be the team that probably wins it all because big impacts is they're on the left side of that bracket and they don't have to face Arkansas, LSU, or Tennessee. And they're also just a red hot team. So it was like it made a lot of sense. But Arizona, they had a comeback in game two. And after you have that comeback in game two, you're puckering if you're North Carolina because you're like, how can we lose this after
Mhm.
winning game one? So that one was a shocker for me, like an absolute shocker. I think that again, kind of similarly, you kind of like think about some pitching decisions.
Yeah.
Like, do you keep McDuffie in a little bit longer? What's your thought process? Like, I know that they were maybe trying to go like a lefty versus lefty, or maybe uh, you always question things when you lose. But again, I think you just kind of have to tip your cap to Arizona. And Mason White, who really didn't have a great super, came through with just a really big single there in that
Yeah.
game three. And I mean, frankly, I think it was Vanderbrake. I think it was the bottom of the eighth. I want to say Arizona was home game three. There was a 4-6-3, easiest double play probably of his life, hit right at him. Like a little three hopper. He didn't really
Yeah.
have to move. He just booted it. And that was the inning that I think it was 1-4 at that time, 2-4, almost similar to Oregon State and game one versus Florida State, where I mean North Carolina was kind of dominating that game,
Mhm.
and they just booted it, and then you had another bunt that it hit the runner, and they reviewed it to see if it was that runner interference, which is just the worst rule of all time. They even added an extra bag, and it still feels like it comes up, every fourth game.
They called it in the
But
Murray State game too.
yeah, yeah. I mean that
That was
I'm
different.
so proud of the NCAA for
Yeah.
actually making the right because I think there was enough there that they could say stand, but it shouldn't have stood. Like he
No.
slid directly into the base. And it's just the Murray State second baseman, because it was a 6-4-3 attempt. He was in the lane. He was in the running lane. And so yeah, like their feet got tangled because he was in the running lane. And
Yeah.
so it like I remember as I was watching it, I was like, oh, that guy just took him out. Like that's gonna be obstruction. And then when they showed the replay, their cleats just basically, got tangled.
Yeah.
So I think again, going back to Arizona, like really hot team. Uh, I, this Omaha set up for them. For those unaware, High C in Arizona is one of the biggest stadiums in the country.
Yeah.
And so if there's any team that's built to go into a very large stadium, it's Arizona. And just for, casual baseball fans, it's one of the like most proud organizations from a college baseball standpoint in terms of national championships. So I think just like a number of variables make you say, and they're on the left side of the bracket. I think anyone on that side of the bracket could make it out. So that should be a really entertaining side of the bracket because, frankly, I think it's a coin flip for any four of them.
Yeah, I keep hearing that like the left side of the bracket is set up so like Arkansas or LSU can just steamroll whoever's on the left side, which maybe they're right, but I still feel like I don't know this year, man. It feels like every notion that we have in our head of like what's going to happen has completely flipped the script. So like I don't at this point I'm just like I'm not even taking guesses of like what's going to potentially happen.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna say what I think, and then I'm gonna agree. I think they would. I think if Arkansas and
Yeah.
LSU were split, I think they would both be massive favorites
Hmm.
for the culture. So there's still 1-2 for favorites for the World Series,
Yeah.
even though they play each other game one. So I do think if they were split, those would be the perennial favorites. And it's really unfortunate that the committee just didn't have the foresight to see something that was so
Yeah.
plainly obvious. Um, but it is what it is. And frankly, it's set up for really good parity. It really feels like, quite honestly, that they kind of set this up for parity. You had um, oh um, Georgia and Ole Miss were paired up with one another. Um, you had Arkansas and Tennessee paired up with one
Hmm.
another, and then Arkansas would have to play LSU, and and LSU and Kentucky were paired up with one another. It basically made it to where even with 13 teams, you were only going to get max at any point, maybe like 5 teams in Omaha. Yeah,
Yeah.
you had 6. I think were there 6 SEC teams that were top 8 national seeds, if I remember correctly. So
I
like
think so. Yeah.
theoretically, you should have, but again, like it's one of those things where they would have had to have played a good SEC like Arkansas.
Hmm.
Arkansas played Tennessee, who frankly coming into this they were number 5 in the odds to win the national championship because some of the draft boards came out today. They have 5 potential first round draft picks. So it's one of the things where sometimes like your record doesn't correspond to how good of a team you are.
Yeah.
And so I really do feel like this was set up to increase parity, and it did, which is good.
Yeah. No, I love it. Are there any other series you want to dive into before we kind of shift over to the
Um,
College World Series?
UCLA, UTSA, that was kind of a snooze fest.
Yeah.
UCLA just kind of handled it. UTSA is a really good team, but unfortunately, there's just not much to say other than then like UCLA played really well. To me, they're the
Yeah.
biggest question mark. Like they're the biggest question mark for me
Hmm.
because they're on that right side of the bracket, and so they're going to be playing Murray State to begin with. And so in
Yeah.
theory, you go, okay, well, um, everyone keeps saying this, but we should theoretically win.
Yeah.
So like in theory, UCLA should be in that 1-0 game. But again, like everyone keeps saying that and they keep winning. So you have to feel good if you're UCLA because again, in theory, you're playing the weakest of the 8 teams, but they're on a roll. And sometimes it's hard to beat a team when they're on a roll.
Yeah.
And then for Louisville, Miami. That one was that especially game 3. That was a unique game. It almost felt
Yeah.
like which team didn't want to like lose because each time it felt like a team like had loaded the base. There was like a 1-2-3 double play. There were a ton of walks. Like frankly, it wasn't like a super clean game 3, but it was a great environment.
Hmm.
Like phenomenal environment in Louisville. So, hats off to them. Forbes is going game 1. So, well, at least that's my assessment. That's my guess.
Yeah.
So they pair up with Oregon State.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, they do.
yeah. So because Louisville came out of the Vandy was 1-8. Yeah. Um, so I think that'll be a really hard test for Oregon State. I wonder if they go Dax Whitney game 1. Not
Could do
sure.
it. I think that's
Um,
probably who they would go with.
I mean, he's their best pitcher. I mean,
Yeah.
I think they had him Saturdays most of the year.
Hmm.
But true freshman, maybe they wanted to like bring him on slowly, but he looked so good for
Yeah.
Florida
Electric.
State. Even though they should have lost that game, he looked very, very good in that game.
Yeah. They weren't
Um,
losing because of him.
yeah, they were losing because they just couldn't score any runs.
Yeah.
Um, and then I guess is that pretty much it? Did we just go through all of them?
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
most of it. I mean, the Coastal Auburn. That
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Frankly, I didn't watch much of that one.
It was
So I'd love your thoughts on that.
to me like I expected Auburn to put up more of a fight, and it was just like they could not get anything going against this Coastal pitching staff. Jacob Morrison was electric. Cam Flukie didn't actually pitch well in game one. He gave up 3 earned, five innings pitched. He was kind of just struggling to find the strike zone. It felt like they were leaving him in there too long, but it paid off. They won game one. Like the
Yeah.
bats did, they had clutch home run from Caden Bodine. Like this team, the offense is so boring but so good. Like they're
Yeah.
not going to hit the long ball. Like Blake Barthel is the guy in the lineup that's going to hit the long ball. The rest of them, they're going to wear the pitcher out until he throws like God knows how many pitches and in like 4 innings. They're going to get on base. They're going to make contact, and it's just I talked about it kind of in our last podcast. They just pester you, man, and it's got to be frustrating as a pitching staff. And you look at Auburn's pitching staff, not the best in college baseball. Cade Fisher, I mean, that's a guy who struggled with this lineup just because they were running up the pitch count, and that's just kind of what they do to arms. I mean, they're gonna run into like more Studley arms, I think, once they get Arizona's got Colin McKinney. If they get past Arizona, they'll have to face somebody else. I think Oregon State or Louisville. So like they'll run into some better arms probably than they saw at Auburn. But man, that pitching staff keeps them in every single game, and it's crazy. Like they do what you talk about. But with better stuff. They live on the inside of the strike zone, the outside of the strike zone. They use all four quadrants, like it, and they just don't walk people. And so it's
Yeah.
just like it's fun to watch that pitching staff day in and day out. Like uh, the things that their head coach has done to keep that program in from the previous head coach and kind of continue the success, man. I just love that Coastal team.
Agreed. Agreed. And I was looking at one of the questions from the chat. And
Yeah,
so basically, like, do we think this is the year that LSU finally breaks through or Arkansas finally breaks through and is,
yeah,
LSU's pitching duo compared to the field? Um, I think it's going to be hard for Arkansas. And frankly, I think it's because of your second question. Ryan. I think they're going to go Jansen. So
mm,
Jansen went against Arkansas in game 2 like 4 weeks ago in Baton Rouge. He went 6 innings for like 3 hits, 11 punchies, and no earned runs. That was the game that Arkansas got run ruled. It was 13-3. That was the odd one where LSU had a walk-off strikeout because there was a guy on third base and the ball got away from the catcher. So the guy
mm,
scored from third base, and it bumped up the difference to 10, therefore being the mercy rule. So literally, like they had a walk off strikeout. So
yeah,
I think because LSU's pitching is so good, frankly, like 1 through 8. It's not just a couple of guys like we just talked about with Coastal, with Flukie and Johnson. Like you go, okay, these guys are really good, and then there are a few other names, but one kind of like once you get past like those 4 or 5, it's like, okay, we can manage this. LSU, you can't do that. You have
yeah.
Cowan and Evans and Meyer and Newt and Shores and who's the true freshman? It was like a top 10
Jason
perfect game.
Evans,
No, Kason Evans, he's also a true freshman, but they have another one. He was like top
William Schmidt.
William Schmidt. Thank
Yeah,
you. And so those are just like those are just the guys that aren't your top 5 pitchers in college baseball. So I mean, the fact that I can basically just ramble off 8 guys that are all pumping 95 plus. I mean, um, um, oh my gosh, the Wofford transfer. Why I've already said his name.
Zach Cowan.
Yeah, Cowan. Gosh, he only throws like 90, 92. Like
Yeah,
he's not a big time arm, but he just places him. Everyone, all of the rest of them are just pumping it in there,
hmm,
pumping it in there. And so they're I think for me they're the favorite. I know Arkansas is technically the favorite right now in terms of like if you were to go bet on it, but I look at that Saturday game or Friday game. I can't remember if it was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whichever. I, it's hard for me to forget that. And my assumption is the LSU coaches haven't either. And frankly, they should have beaten Anderson. I think that game was like 4-2 or 4-1 in
yeah.
the 7th or 8th. and Jimenez just kind of crumbled a little bit. So if I was LSU, I would look at that and say, we have two aces. There's no reason to go with our guy we normally go on Friday. Go with this guy.
So you're picking LSU to win it all.
I mean, let me cop out, and I'll say that the winner of that game will win it all.
Okay.
I think because of how the system is set up, to where like that 3-0 game is literally like 5 days after the first game. You can make it to where your root or someone could literally pitch again. So I think it would be really hard for one team to beat Root twice or to beat Jansen twice. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I whoever wins that first game, I think will win it all, because I think they'll come out of the right side of the bracket, and then they'll play whoever comes out of the left side. And I don't see anyone on the left side being able to beat Arkansas or LSU in a 3-game series.
The only team I feel that can do it is Coastal.
I agree, because of pitching. Because of pitching.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. I was gonna say that's Arizona, that's my sneaky pick. I think to if a team's not, besides LSU and Arkansas, is not going to win it, I feel like it's going to be Coastal, because like Auburn was a pretty powerhouse lineup themselves in the SEC, and Coastal just basically shut them down completely. And I saw it in the Sun Belt tournament; they did it there as well, and it's just impressive, man. Like I agree. Like I think if they face LSU, their lineup already is not great in some sense, and if they have to face LSU pitching staff, like that's going to be real tough to come back and like score runs off of. So their pitching staff's going to have to be like lights out to match them toe for toe.
100%.
But I feel like this is a team that's won like 26 straight games now, something stupid like that. Coastal, it's nuts, man. And I don't know. I really, really like this team. They're 26-4. Sorry, they've won 23 straight.
Yeah, it's if it's not broken, don't fix it, and it's clearly not broken. But I think if you were to ask me what's their formula for success, I really don't know. I mean, good starting pitching, but if you step back and look at their offense, like it's not phenomenal. No. It's really not.
It's Caden Bodine and Blake Barthel, basically. Sebastian Alexander's been okay.
Yeah. And so, I mean, they're like the Astros from the early 2000s, Bagwell, Biggio, and Bregman. Yeah. That's basically it. So, again, like you look at them and you say the formula doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think that's why a lot of people are picking the Arkansas and the LSUs.
Yeah.
Because, you've got like who's the center fielder for LSU? Stanfield. He came over. Yeah, he came over from Auburn. Yeah, he's probably the best 9-hole hitter in the country. Milam is finally coming on. Frey is a freak. And then Curiel had a really good series. And you still have Bear Jones, who, has a billion home runs in his time at LSU. And Arkansas, I think, has like 120 home runs on the season now. And like 8 of their 9 starters have a OPS above 1,000.
Yeah.
Like that. Both of those teams, and we've already listed off all their pitching. I think that's why everyone just kind of looks at that and say it makes the most sense. But, you have to have only one winner from that side of the bracket. And frankly, again, UCLA is set up kind of nicely. They in theory should have the winner of that. And so they're not going to pitch off. Clearly not. It's interesting because technically, like, there was some odds that Murray State could have been there for in like their regional, and like would they have pitched off? No, but still, like Ole Miss did, and so it's kind of one of those things. It's like in theory they should be set up pretty well.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing for like a Coastal team is they got 3 aces. Basically, they can go to any guy. Like Flukey's they threw Flukey on Friday, and he's probably the worst out of the 3, and he's still like a top 2026 draft pick. Like he's a first rounder, and it's just crazy.
I think he has the best stuff on the team. I think Flukey has the best stuff.
Yeah, he's got the best stuff. Probably not the most polished, but like definitely the best stuff. But that's what's crazy about that team. It's like you can throw Fluky out on a Friday when he's usually like a Sunday guy. It's just crazy. I think it was Saturday, but yeah, I don't know. What else you got for the College World Series? Anything else you want to talk about for?
Um, Not really. I think it'll be kind of my hot take is I think this is a unique College World Series to where you kind of have two teams that are theoretically like juggernauts,
Mhm.
and then you just kind of have a bunch of teams. I think D1 baseball put out like their percentages of schools that were picked to go to this, and it was Arkansas and LSU were each like 20 to 25, and everybody else was like under 5%.
Yeah,
I it, I think it's going to be a really unique bracket to be of like, all right, are we going to have some of just the crazy gameplay that we saw last year? Because last year we had a lot of the juggernauts. A lot of the juggernauts were in Omaha, and so
hmm,
you had some really impressive gameplay. You know, are you going to have kind of like walkathons? Are you going to have it to where, is there going to be much of small ball? Like you're going to probably see a lot more small ball in
yeah,
this College World Series than you're used to because a lot of these teams, like they manufacture runs and then they win games. They're not like going up there saying, I want to hit a 450-foot bomb to center field. There aren't just many of the eight that do that.
yeah,
So I'll be interested. I mean, like Oregon State in Game 2, their fans were literally chanting "small ball." Like you're going to probably hear that.
yep.
So just get ready for it.
No, I love it. We can probably get into some other news, just coaching news, portal
Yeah.
news. First, we'll go into the portal because there's a question in here for you on the portals. Thoughts on
Okay.
South Carolina's transfer class?
Oh, it's we have it second right now. I think they
Hmm.
got eight guys, nine guys committed. Um, 4 to 5 really good ones. They got another one from Virginia today, Hodges, the freshman left-handed pitcher. So I think Bradley Hodges.
Yeah,
Sorry, I don't have all these names memorized,
yeah,
but he was a big one. Sutter from Purdue was one of the ones at the beginning. He was I think their first commit. He was a really good one. I mean, they have a lot that they need to replace. They lost their shortstop, Kazmar. I can't remember. It's Ka something. He was the
yeah,
Oregon
yeah.
State or not. He was Ohio State transfer from the previous year.
Hmm.
So they have a lot to replace. They lose Petrie. They lose a lot. And they lose a lot from a team that frankly wasn't very good.
Yeah.
So it's great to see. You love to see that for South Carolina. Really proud program. I mean, I'm 37. So back in like the early 2010s when I was coming out of college, they were the program. They won
Hmm.
the back-to-back national championships. Like they were just dominant. It wasn't just like they won it. Like people are like, oh, they're going to win this.
Yeah.
And so like seeing that to where the question was going into last weekend, who's going to have more SEC wins than Missouri? Like that's been a crazy flip. I think they've put enough into the program. I think they've put enough into the factors to move it forward. And I really like the coaching staff. Monty Lee has been like a really great guy for us. He's been just really a great sounding board. So I really enjoy my
Yeah.
conversations with him. I mean, they have a bunch of like really good coaches. So um, I'm happy for them. And it's always good to see a team that can utilize one of the resources, which is the portal,
Hmm.
to make themselves frankly instantly better.
Yeah. And then one thing I'll say too, but I know Paul Maneri got a lot of crap for the season that they had, but it's like I always kind of give leeway to the first year. It's really, really tough the first year to kind of set your foundation and figure out how to move forward because even if you're going to an SEC school, like you're still probably, regardless of the transfer portal and things like that, going to have a lot of holdovers from the last team that aren't technically your guys, quote unquote, right? And so like it takes a while to build a roster of your guys who are all going to be bought in on the same mission. Like same with your uh, transfer portal, with your freshmen that are coming in, like to build a group of what guys are going to throw out every single day that are your guys is takes time.
And I think honestly, like you have it to where once you have some momentum that's going in the wrong direction, it's really hard to change it.
Yeah.
So they played Arkansas, I think, Series 2. Then I think they played Tennessee right afterwards. I can't remember who they played the series before, but they got swept 2
Yeah.
series in a row. They were kind of similar with Florida. It was like Florida, um, Missouri, South Carolina, and I feel like one more that they were all like 1 to 2 wins and like 7 to 8 losses. I mean, Missouri was 0-9.
Yeah.
But I mean, you had it to where they had such a big hole to get out of almost immediately that I think they kind of got this spiral into struggle.
Yeah.
And they also got some teams when they were hot. Arkansas and Tennessee were super hot at the beginning of the year, and that's when they got them. They got LSU at the end of the year when they were super hot.
Yep.
And sometimes they just get really good teams at the bad time. I think they got Florida, if I remember correctly, when Florida
Yeah.
started to turn things around.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things where it felt like every time that they were flipping the coin, like they were just coming up tails. Like there were just no heads for them.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to say, I mean, they had holes. Like they definitely needed more pieces. But I think as much as people want to talk about how the SEC was down this year, I think you had a very good SEC conference and kind of a quirky tournament. But that very good SEC conference, I think they just their schedule was set up to where it was difficult for them, and their holes really started to shine pretty brightly.
Yeah. No, I agree there. Just in terms of best guys available in the portal, it seems like guys who are for sure going to go to campus, like Eric Becker, Chris Hakopian, and those guys are probably the top two. I think they're 1 and 2 in your rankings as well.
Yes, yeah,
Andrew Wiggins now entered the portal today. That's
yeah.
another big 2026 draft
And
class
he's an
bat.
interesting one because really, if you look at his
Yeah.
data, it doesn't scream top 10. I think he
Hmm.
had like a sub 900 OPS, was like 860, 870, something like that. Not phenomenal, but all of his subjectives really boosted him. So he plays in a Power Four Big Ten, so that gives him a boost.
Yeah.
There's a projection that he'll be a high draft pick in 2026. That gives him a very high boost. And the fact that he was highly sought off after in high school gives him a boost. So a number of those things, and then on top of it, like still a decent OPS. Like I think he was like 950 or something like that as a freshman, and then like close to 900 as a sophomore, something in that ballpark. I mean, he has like a 450 OBP. It's just that ISO, for people unaware of, it's your slugging minus your average. Basically, all it says is like how many extra base hits do you have. So
Yeah.
for a guy that's really highly thought of in the pro draft, that's really low ISO. Generally, you're seeing guys with those kinds of selection thought process having like a 250 to 300 plus ISO, to where like if you're batting 350, your slugging is 650. So like those are the guys, and that's why generally they're like having like 1100 OPS because they have like a 450 on base percentage. So yeah, he's a weird one. Then you've got McIlvain from Vandy. I'm really interested to
Hmm.
see where he goes because he's a sophomore. He's
Yeah.
definitely going to be coming back. He was a bullpen piece for Vandy. Is he wanting to go somewhere to start? My assumption is yes.
He was a
Um,
highly touted guy for a little bit. There's thought that he was going to be a high draft pick too. So,
yeah, yeah. So I mean, he still has the potential. Like he's got
mhm.
crazy stuff. Upper 90s, really good pitcher.
Yep.
And he was, I mean, it was him and Sawyer Hawks were kind of like, well, McIlvain, I think he started the season as a starter and it didn't go well. And then they
Yep.
threw him in the pen, if I remember correctly. So, like, I think he found his niche kind of later on. But they also had Sawyer Hawks, who was dominating. I mean, Vandy's pitching was so good this year. It kind of felt like the moment he kind of sputtered, they were like, all right, well, we have to throw somebody else in because we're good enough to where, frankly, we don't have enough time for you to figure it out. And by the time he'd figured it out, he kind of lost his spot to Fennel.
Yeah.
So, it just kind of made sense. He's a really big piece. Um, then Tenney. I think Hakopian and Tenney are the ones I get questioned about all the time.
Yep.
I think when he went in, my thought process was Florida State. just because Link came from
Mhm.
Notre Dame. So in theory, you have to say like, okay, there's probably some sort of connection there, and
Yeah.
would that like materialize? But then you have to kind of go, well, also, who has the most bang for the buck of NIL? And I think, frankly, we're seeing a kind of a slowdown on those top 30 to 50 players because of what we saw happen on Friday or Saturday
The ruling.
with
Yeah.
the ruling. For those unaware, it basically said that for any NIL determination above $600, it had to go through clearinghouse, which is basically everyone. And for all
Yeah.
of those top, like basically top 200 players, that's every single one of them. And just kind of pulling back the curtains for some people on here, some of these guys ask for some really quirky stuff when it comes to like their NIL structuring, and it's going to be really hard to do now. And
Yeah.
so I think you're seeing some pause, probably from some agents who are trying to figure out like, you know, is this ironclad? Like, do we have to follow this? Are there loopholes? Is someone going to sue? Like, this is what it always happens.
Yeah.
You always get someone who sues, and then it goes to some other court, and that other court puts like a hold on that court's decision,
Yeah.
and then it's a free for all again. So I think you may see a little bit of a pause, and you also have, just quite frankly, you have two of the big spenders who were still playing.
Mhm.
So I think it's a combination of all of those things.
Yeah. No, I agree, and it'll be interesting to see how some of it pans out. Like to your point of like Tenney potentially going to Florida State, that's kind of what I thought maybe Hakopian would do. Like connections to Rob Vaughn, like Alabama, would that be a fit? But when we're talking like big time NIL deals, Alabama's probably not the place where he's going to go get the highest NIL deal. Maybe he'll get a good one there, but it's just one of those things. It's
They have
just
LeBron.
yeah,
He's not going to go there.
yeah,
I mean, I'm not going to say never say never, but um, they would have had to have expend, and I don't know if you saw that, but that his "Hey, he's coming back" thing came out before that decision was made.
yeah,
So I'm sure that wasn't a coincidence whatsoever.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't see that just because they've already got a shortstop that's kind of ironclad. Now he could play, I think, right field. He could play DH. He could play second base. But
Hakopian's probably a third baseman
yeah,
at the next level in my
I
like.
might. But uh,
But
who is second
Iredale,
baseman for LSU,
oh
who
LSU,
came from Utah Valley,
Dickinson,
Dickinson.
yeah,
So he wanted to guarantee a shortstop. So, which is pretty interesting because he actually didn't end up playing
he
shortstop.
played second,
Uh,
yeah,
but he was telling a lot of coaches, like, I want to guarantee shortstop. Ironically, so was Keelan. So, like, two of the best shortstops were basically saying, like, I want to play shortstop.
yeah,
I think he's probably one of those as well, to where they see
draft
that
stock,
Arquette and Aloy
yeah,
are the ones that are getting paid a lot. Keelan's getting paid a lot.
yeah,
Like, they want to play short.
yep,
They see that Dickinson just doesn't have as high of a draft slot right now because Milan's playing short.
yeah,
Not completely, but I think it is a little bit of a tell, that it almost like limits you to where if your college coaches are basically saying like we think you're better not at short, the pros are not going to like
no.
put you at short.
I think like
So
even after coming out of Utah Valley on our draft board, we had Dickinson as like a second baseman
yeah,
because he just knew,
he just doesn't have the arm. He really
yeah,
just doesn't have the arm.
yeah,
And so that's why when he came out, I was like, well, like, can they put him at third?
yeah,
But and then when the South Carolina transfer, why am I forgetting his name? He played shortstop for LSU last year. He's still playing for LSU. He's the third
Milam,
baseman this year.
Steve,
No,
no,
Milam's the shortstop. He was a true
yeah,
freshman
yeah,
last
yeah,
year.
yeah.
Um,
I know who you're
I don't
talking
know.
about, and I can't
I don't know
remember.
why I'm blanking. I'll keep talking about him. You can Google him for me. But
Yeah,
Bramwell.
yeah, yeah, Braswell,
Yeah.
Michael
Yeah. So
Braswell.
yeah. So everyone thought he was going to go pro, and so at that point, I think Dickinson had already committed,
Mhm.
and so it was like, well, shit. Like, what do you do now? You basically have Milam, who incredible defender, probably wants to play short. Now you have
Yeah,
your shortstop coming back, and now you have Dickinson, who theoretically wanted to play short, but now there's like, is he second in line? Is he third in line? Like, what do they do? And then they end up shoving Braswell over to third, and he just kind of goes back to playing second base.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Hakupi, I saw him a few times out at Maryland, and he can handle shortstop. Like, he's got good range, good instincts. It's not like elite level shortstop, but like he can play there. The arm's definitely strong enough. Like why I said he was a third baseman is because of the arm strength, and I think he would just be better fitted for third base. Um, so yeah, it's just one of those things where like you said, price tag probably showcases why those guys want to be at short. Like Becker
Yep.
is probably not a great shortstop either, but he wants to be listed as a shortstop because wants to get the money.
Everybody does.
Oh, I was gonna pull this up. Let's see here. Hold on 1 second. Let's
Oh,
see if I
you
can.
got something?
Yeah, I got Wiggins film. Actually, there we go. That's why he's a. That's why he's a top guy. Now, how do I fix that? There we go. Oh, now it's just me. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, yeah.
I kicked you out.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I mean, again, but yeah, you showed he has a great swing. He's got great power. He had like
I
a
know.
440 slugging.
Yeah.
Like that's not good.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna pull up Arkansas's stats for this
But if
year,
he
and
could get to a program that knows what to do with his swing, like
but
maybe,
like Indiana knows what to look at
yeah,
their
I
like
know Devin
numbers.
Taylor, Corbin Dickerson.
Yeah, like they put up two
Yeah.
more perfect game freshman All-American this year.
Yeah.
Like they're and one of the top portal second basemen also came from Indiana. Like
Jason
they're
Oliver. Yeah.
no, not let me just pull up. I've gone to my computer. I feel bad, but I am. Tyler Cerny.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah, Cerny.
yeah. So Cerny's like one of our top second basemen. So
Hmm.
like in theory, he's at a place where clearly you can succeed,
Yeah.
and by ability and by scout, he's someone that is seen as someone who should succeed. So
Hmm.
there are a few things that go into this that are a little perplexing, but someone's going to get him
Yeah.
because a left-handed, rangy outfielder
With juice.
with great bat speed and juice,
Yeah.
like you just don't see a ton of those. So again, like someone is going to pay for that guy.
Hmm.
But I will say, like as I was reviewing this, I was like, do I have him too high? Just because I'm yeah, his slugging last year was 414. We'll go to Arkansas, and we'll go to their hitting. Give me a second, and then we'll sort. So Arkansas, we'll do at bats greater than or equal to 75. Apply. So they had nine guys. All of them had a slugging above 415. So literally, he wouldn't have even made the current roster for Arkansas if you were to think
Yeah.
about it from like a slugging perspective. So that's why, like, when I made it, when I saw the number, I was like, well, shit, like, is this too high? But again, that's why I don't like to tinker with the formula too much.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't want to see like one player and be like, let's blow it up. But yeah, we'll see how
Yeah.
it
Because
works.
I think like if you think about like Carson Tinney versus Wiggins, like Tinney's probably
Tenny's
higher.
like 20th or something.
Yeah.
And again, that it's just because of like the subjectivity in it.
Yeah. Want to just jump into coaching updates before we kind of wrap up. We had Brian O'Connor go to Mississippi State. We had Chris Pollard go to Virginia, take Brian O'Connor's old spot. We talked a little bit about Pollard already, so not too much to add there. But any thoughts on O'Connor to Mississippi State?
Um, I mean, I think this was about the best that Mississippi State could have done.
Yeah,
And that's not a slight against Mississippi State. I mean, this was a top 5, top 10 coach. I'm
yeah,
not thinking about the numbers in my head, but in the game. So if you're thinking like, who do we replace him with, and you say like, oh, let's swing for the fences, he is a swing for the fence type of coach.
yeah.
And not only that, but Virginia was loaded with young talent, like loaded with young talent. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're seeing that in the portal. And
Just
so
seeing
in the
Nunnally, Teal, all these
yeah,
guys follow
Nunnally,
suit.
Teal, Ford, like Becker, all of those guys, Hodges. Hodges just
Yep.
went to South Carolina, but all of these, I mean, I felt really bad. I was making like a top player at each position, and it felt like every other one I was throwing up a Virginia
Virginia.
player.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, feel like I just should have put up a like
The
picture of their
lineup.
roster and then said like, Here's the top players." But so frankly, it makes a ton of sense. Um, the interesting thing is like how far in advance like was this known? Because again, they got rid of Lamonis a month and a half ago,
Mhm.
like what, like 4 or 5. So
How
it
long
was at least
discussions have been
4
happening.
series ago, and
Yeah.
so now we're 3 weeks post. Yeah, so it would have been 7 weeks ago ish, 7 to 8
Mhm.
weeks. So they spent a lot of time looking,
Yeah.
and we I think I even said it. I was like, well, if you're gonna wait for them to lose, like you're gonna be waiting. I think I even used O'Connor as an example. It's like you're gonna be waiting a while. They did
Yep.
wait a while. Now they didn't have to wait too long because Virginia did make it to the tournament, which was a benefit for them because then they turned around like as soon as they lost to Florida State. I think they hired their head coach. Their SID sent out like the tweet like as they were boarding the plane. That was in a race for who got it quicker. Virginia naming Duke's head coach or Mississippi State naming Virginia's head coach. I feel like it would have been a battle because those were both very, very quick.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was the best they could have done, and I think that was as quickly as they could have done it based upon whom they got. And because of that, they're now set up well in the portal. I think they're like number 6 or 7. And again, like they're going to be swinging for the fence. I know. I mean, I think he got 2.9 million per year in his contract, so he's like now the number 2 highest paid coach in all of
Crazy.
baseball behind Vitello.
Yeah.
So I'm sure also embedded within that was like, hey, you're going to have X amount of dollars for NIL, which is going to allow them to do a lot. And my
Mhm.
assumption, I mean, they already got a great player out of Illinois. Don't make me say his name because I won't be able to. It sounds like Eastern European, but he a very good player for them. So I mean, they've already got a very good start to their class. So again, I think this is as good as they could have done.
Yeah. For Duke, potential replacements, I think we've seen Kendall's reported Josh Jordan from LSU's the top candidate, and it's like basically his to turn down. Like if he doesn't want it, then it's not going to be his job.
So
But
I go
yeah,
ahead.
go. I was going to say, who are other guys that you would think would be of interest for this?
So now that like all of the dust is like officially settled with pretty much everything, I thought it was potentially going to be Fitz from Mississippi State.
Hmm.
And when it wasn't Fitz from Mississippi State, and then when the Duke spot opened, I was like, okay, well, like could Fitz be potentially at Duke? But almost again, it was like a race for which team could throw out the tweet the fastest.
Yeah.
Kansas then went and gave him a 6-year deal. In college baseball, 6 years is a long
Yeah.
time for a contract. So he had a lot of leverage. Good for him. And because I mean, Kansas, the turnaround that he did at that program is simply phenomenal.
Hmm.
So kudos to him. Good for Kansas for wrapping him up, making sure that you've got someone that you should, and great for their program. Um, right now, I mean, feels again like this is what everyone does. Cliff Godwin's name's in front. It's not gonna be Cliff Godwin. Like,
Yeah.
no, no. Like, I mean, maybe because it's also in the Carolinas, like you can try to convince yourself
Yeah.
that. But the amount of times it feels like that guy has, unless he just loves interviewing, it feels like his name gets thrown out every other day for
Yeah.
every other job. So I don't see that. I feel like they're gonna move quick. It sounds like the Josh Jordan thing is moving quick. I have no thought on that whatsoever because I'm not gonna pretend like I have sources. Like I'm reading like everyone else is reading.
Yeah.
Again, I think Duke, I think is a difficult place. I think because it's a smaller stadium, it's a difficult school to recruit at from a portal perspective because we've already talked about in terms of having to bring in pretty much only grad school only guys. So I mean, there are a few disadvantages just right off the rip.
Hmm.
So I do think that maybe someone in the assistant pool makes a lot of sense. It's still a phenomenal job. a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
Someone has shown that you can build a very strong program somewhat quickly there in the ACC. And they were, they were in the supers 2 years ago. They were in the supers this year. Like they've been a whisper away from Omaha back to back years. So not only can you have success, you can have sustained success. So, I think it can be a good job, but I do think it's a job that, in terms of college baseball, is a little harder than maybe like per se like the Mississippi States.
Yeah. One guy I will mention that I've heard kind of the name floated around a little bit, and just because he's in my area, is Edwin Thompson from Georgetown. He's
Okay.
got ties to Duke. He spent 2 years there. I think he was a recruiting coordinator, recruited Marcus Stroman to Duke as well. He turned around an Eastern Kentucky team. He turned around a Georgetown team until this season. Like he was 2022 Big East Coach of the Year. Like that's a name, and he's only 41 years old. So like that's a name I would definitely, just because of the ties of the program. Like if Josh Jordan isn't going to get it, he could be a name that he's got experience at like a Georgetown where you have to kind of recruit in the same way, but you just don't
Yeah.
have the same resources.
Yeah, and I mean Georgetown's best player played for Duke this year. Hyde
Yeah.
didn't, yeah. So
Yeah.
I, yeah, I it would make some sense. I mean,
It's not a big
I
enough
think if I
name,
was,
maybe, but
it's yeah. I mean, I think there's some connections there, but again, I think this is a job that you have to come in wanting to be hungry, because you know it's a little bit like Vandy.
yeah.
Like it's also hard to recruit like the transfer portal to Vandy,
Hmm.
and they no longer have that advantage of the opportunity Vandy where they were able to offer scholarships to everybody.
Yeah.
Now everyone can do that. So I think it's going to be kind of a common. It's going to be a little bit harder. So um, again, they can get a great hire clearly, but it does have its disadvantages.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Um, I'm really excited that all four games are going to be on ESPN.
That's awesome.
I don't know if y'all saw
Yeah.
that, but the schedule came out, and a lot of times it feels like these games get relegated to ESPN2 or ESPN News, and like we're stuck kind of watching like I don't know the NBA playoffs or something. I mean,
Hmm.
it's it's kind of frustrating because you see softball I think had their highest viewed game ever. The Texas Tech Texas game 3 had like 2.73 million or so eyes on the game. Like there are people who want to watch the game, and
Yeah.
I think from what it seems like ESPN may finally be waking up, looking at their numbers from squeeze play and saying, "Shit, if we put these on prime time, maybe people will watch."
Yeah.
So it's great for the sport that it's kind of in the limelight. So I'm just really hopeful for some great games. Unfortunately, I won't be there since it always falls on Father's Day, which is just rough. Like I feel like just
Push it.
do something. My wife last year, because it was my first Father's Day, she's like, "Do you really want to be away like on your first Father's Day?" And I was like, "I have
Yeah.
to for work." And she's like, "Okay, okay." And this year, I'm like, you know what? Last year, I was on my computer pretty much the whole time. Like, I'm just gonna stay here and watch it on television. So, I'm gonna miss it. I'll miss Rocco's. For anyone who hasn't been there, it's basically a mosh pit. Like, it's not a big bar, and everyone and their dog is just like crammed into this tiny little room. It's not as glorious as you think it would be, but it is a great experience. Um, and it is hot. Oh my gosh, it was so hot last year. I got burnt like crazy, but a great experience. Hopefully, you already got a hotel room because this is the point where every hotel room is now going for 30x what it should be going for. I know I stayed in a hotel room that was just outside of Nebraska. It was in Iowa, so legitimately, like, and it's right there on the state border for anyone that's
Yeah.
unaware. So the hotel room I stayed at last year was it was a junk. It was junk. So hopefully you've already got a hotel room if you're going.
I do not yet. So good times.
Are you going?
Yes, I am. I will be
Oh my
there.
god, man.
Yeah,
I I mean, at the hotel I went to, I think it was like 350 a night, which is you're
yeah.
like, "Oh my god, 350?" That like
I do think they have a
the
media block though, which is nice.
do they really?
Mhm.
At what place?
I don't know. I have to look it back up in the
Oh
email.
man, I bet it's already gone. I would
Yeah,
check because the hotels across from the stadium are going for like 5 grand a night,
yeah.
which it's silly stupid. I mean, they're nice hotels. They're not that nice. They're not that nice. Have you
Yeah.
been to Omaha?
No, I have not. This is gonna be my
It's
first time.
it's it kind of just feels like an oasis in the middle of kind of nowhere. Um, I mean, just flat, but really a super neat environment because you don't just see fans there of the 8 teams. Kind of feels like everyone just kind of descends upon Omaha towards that time.
Mhm.
I will say you can find tickets pretty cheap right behind home plate, depending upon the number of like tickets you need like together. Pretty much right before the game, I was just going and searching, and that Florida State Tennessee game last year, I had a seat right behind home plate for
That's
like
sweet.
$70.
That's awesome.
Like I had my phone out during that famous check swing. I still have it on slow mo on my phone, and I think I posted on Twitter. I was like, "This is what it looked like from behind home plate." But yeah, it was a great environment. A lot of really neat people there. I'd recommend if you know the guys from NCAA Insiders, Matt Grissom, those guys are going to be there. They'll probably be partaking in the devil juice or whatever you want to
Yeah.
say. But we had a lot of fun drinking and having the Jello shots at Rocco. So really, it's just kind of a big party, and you have some baseball games in between.
Love it. Awesome. Yeah, we'll have Will out there for like our Aram will actually be out there for the first half. Aram Layton, who does the call up and does everything else at Just Baseball, he'll be out there for the first half doing some Golden Spike stuff. And then I will be out there and Will be out there for the championship game.
Nice.
So make sure to catch all that content. But until next time, we'll see you.